Hey guys, it's Ree again, and today I'll be continuing The Family That Slays Together, Chapter 3, Part 3. And I'm sorry this has taken so many parts, but this is a really long chapter, and also it is not safe for work, as you probably know from the last video if you were watching it. And yeah, that's all. And I'm not going to hold back, so I'm going to read all of it. So, yes, that's all. I will start now. Good. Daniel trailed fingers down David's chest and stomach, smearing his cum. He brought his fingers to his lips and licked them clean. Let's clean you up a little first, though, David shivered. He assumed Daniel was going to hand him a tissue or something, but he was very wrong. Daniel was suddenly above him, that predatory gaze back in his eyes. His head dipped. Tongue met stomach, slowly ran up it. Lips soon joined. They licked and sucked up every drop of cum splattered across David's torso, working their way up. David briefly wondered what it tasted like. Teeth grazed a nipple. Two long fingers entered him, sinking in deep. Coherent thought suddenly became impossible. Daniel was above him again, staring down with those piercing eyes. Look at me, he commanded when David tried to avert his gaze. Their eyes met. David whimpered, his fingers thrust deeply. Say my name. Daniel? A whisper. Again. Daniel! Louder this time with a hint of a whimper. Again. Harsher this time. Daniel! Fingers pressed hard against something inside him. David's back arched and his vision was momentarily white. He was hard and his legs were shaking all over again. There's a good boy. Daniel smirked. His fingers rubbed circles into that spot, making the man under him moan and writhe and grip the sheets desperately. Tell me you want me to fuck you. Daniel, his voice was breathless. Please have sex with me. That's not what I said. He pushed hard on the spot, making David cry out loudly and his hips come off the bed. Say, Daniel, I want you to fuck me. Daniel, I want you to fuck me. He didn't like the language, but goddamn, he was desperate. Daniel chuckled and gently withdrew his fingers. David's hips fell back on the bed and he went limp. Good boy, Davy. Next thing David knew, he was on his hands and knees. This time, when David thrust into him, it knocked the air out of his lungs. Daniel had been right. It was deeper in this position. One hand flew to the headboard, gripping it tightly to ground him. Daniel didn't bother going too quickly this time. His thrusts were hard and deep, barely giving poor David a moment to catch his breath. He couldn't stay up. His hands gripped the edges of the pillow and he buried his face in it. The hands gripping his hips were about the only thing keeping him up. The pillow muffled his moaning and begging and praising. At some point he became aware that it was slowly getting damp. Whether that was from sweat or drool or tears of pleasure, he had no idea. But behind him he could hear Daniel panting and groaning and muttering things under his breath. David caught a few of them, but they were words he'd never repeat. He knew they were being loud. Sex was noisy. Between the noises coming from them, the slapping of skin, and the headrest knocking against the wall, he doubted Jasper couldn't hear at least a little of this. At the moment, he did not care. That was future David's problem. Present David was getting his brains fucked out and was not concerned about the consequences. Daniel pushed his hips lower and angled his thrust downwards. Suddenly, the spot he'd been torturing David with earlier was being pelted with hard thrusts. The pillow was no longer helping very much with the sounds he was making. He could no longer muster words, just long sobs of pleasure. His body squirmed. Hold still, Daniel hissed. David tensed, trying so hard to stop squirming. He succeeded, but everything was just too much. The pleasure overwhelmed him, and he came with a scream. His face buried deep in the pillow, it did help to muffle it. Daniel moaned and thrust harder, drawing it out. David was a trembling mess by the time orgasm rolled over to post-orgasm bliss. His noises devolved into soft sobs as Daniel continued to nail him. David almost went totally limp, leaving Daniel to do most of the work. The blonde didn't seem to mind. God damn, David, you're so tight, he panted. So fucking good, baby, you feel so fucking good. It was several minutes before he finished. Like last time, he pushed deep inside, groaning David's name loudly. Moments after, David was laying on his side, limp, weak, half asleep, and thoroughly satisfied. His ears picked up the click of a lamp by his bed. Daniel's footsteps across the floor as he went to the trash can, then to the door. The lights clicked off, footsteps returning. "Can I sleep here tonight?" Daniel asked gently. "Yes?" David breathed. The lamp clicked again. The room was completely dark. Daniel climbed onto the bed and pulled David against him. They were still sweaty and sticky and messy, but neither cared. They pressed flesh against each other, enjoying each other's warmth. David grabbed one of Daniel's hands and laced their fingers. Daniel pressed a few light kisses to the back of David's neck sweetly. "No third time?" David whispered. Daniel merely hummed and nuzzled the back of his neck. David was fine with this. They were both too tired. It was late when David awoke again, probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. He didn't feel Daniel against his back. With a soft groan, he rolled over and felt around. Daniel was inches away on his back, probably having rolled in his sleep. Daniel scooted closer and he let his hand slide across Daniel's chest to help guide him in the dark. He pressed himself against Daniel's side. The blonde stirred, a weak, barely audible groan. One arm wrapped around David, pulling him close, and the other flopped around to lay against the arm that David had draped across Daniel's chest. He had his face buried in David's hair and took a deep, tired breath. "Smells nice," he muttered. He was barely even awake at all. David nuzzled Daniel's chest and squeezed him, warm and solid and comforting. David realized he loved this, loved holding another person so intimately. He felt safe. With a soft smile, he kissed Daniel's collar and soon fell right back to sleep. Okay. Yeah, so I finished this, and I'm so sorry for laughing. It's just because the ending is really cute to me for some reason. But, thank you for dealing with the sin. And I only called it that because how I read it. I'm not saying that, I'm not explaining myself anyway. But I love you guys. Thank you for watching, if you're watching. And please enjoy the rest that I will upload later. Love you guys. Bye.